Okay, people, I think that there's something that has to be said regarding not only this episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations, episode 217, but also just Boruto as a whole, because for the longest time, everybody has always said that Boruto, it just can't get the job done when it comes to relying on having any involvement of the newer cast of characters, when it comes to Boruto, when it comes to the, Team 7 or whatever, the new gen of characters. You can't rely on them. It only can be done when Naruto and Sasuke are involved, and while definitely they were very, very vital, especially Naruto to this episode, I want to take the time to actually appreciate the fact that the second half of the episode, there was a very, very impactful and vital moment that wasn't only to do with the previous generation and actually was really, really freaking awesome when it comes to Kawaki. But then again, since Kawaki has been introduced into the Boruto anime and the Boruto series as a whole, Boruto episode 217, the battle of Naruto Uzumaki in his Baryon mode in all of its full glory versus Isshiki Otsutsuki. Studio Pierrot just once again proved it again that when they want to, that when they decide to, that when they put the manpower, the talent behind an episode, they can create magic, because this episode felt like straight up absolute magic when it comes to that quality art, quality animation, and of course you take the source material that had quality writing as well, and you mix it together to make an episode like this that yet again could be in the running, could be thrown into the discussion, the conversation for one of the best fights of 2021 when it comes to anime. Because fam, we gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about Naruto turning into Hajime no Ippo, straight throwing blows, boxing when it comes to fighting a freaking alien. We've gotta talk. And then we also gotta talk about, like I said, the other half of the episode, the emotional aspect, the Kawaki part that really was built up from all of this. If you only jumped to this episode, if you've only seen episode 217 of Boruto Naruto Next Generation, you're missing out on what you would get from the feeling of watching that second half, because there's so much buildup of all the times we've seen Kawaki's flashback and Kawaki's story and what led him to this point, because it's been a tragedy with this character. Without further ado, people, let's jump into it. Let's talk about it. Boruto Naruto Next Generations, this episode, aka greatness, absolute greatness.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
Okay, people, so basically this episode of Boruto, you could argue, was almost like two episodes in one. I can't really remember how this was divided in the manga, but I could definitely say for certain, I felt like I watched two different things that gelled very freaking well, because on one hand, the first half of the episode was, again, Naruto in his Baryon mode, throwing hands with Isshiki Otsutsuki, and Studio Pierrot just pulled out all the stops because the episode looked fantastic on both sides of it. But in particular, going into this fight, I was like, I was nervous, because I ain't gonna lie, this is a big moment in the manga. This was a big key element that happened, and I was like, are they gonna be able to do it justice? Are they going to want to do it justice? Are they gonna do it justice? And they did it justice when Naruto continues to throw hands, and it's cutting back between that and, just seeing the fox inside of him and everything. Like, it was one hell of an episode, just seeing the fluidity when Naruto blows him in the face with a freaking fist and sends him flying. It was incredible. Like, they actually really put their foot into making it look beautiful and, getting a feeling. And that's one of the beautiful things about Boruto. It doesn't always hit. It doesn't always get you that feeling that you would love to have. But when it does, because of all of the rich history of the series prior to it, you really feel it. You really go back and you think of this little shrimp that nobody gave a about, that was hated and all that jazz, to go from that to being this fearless leader that is absolutely kicking major tail in this battle against Isshiki. I'm just so proud proud at this fictional character. Yeah, yo, Fornev, why you proud of fictional characters? Because I can be, okay? That fight just looked incredible, and at the same time, it was also even emotional on that aspect. And what I mean by that is that you see that there's a cost to it. Naruto is starting to feel the effects. You see throughout parts of the episode, the Baryon mode is starting to disappear and come back, and it's leaving him, which means that he's just barely trying to sustain it as he's fighting Isshiki Otsutsuki. There is a discussion to be had right here, because for starters, I want to say when they first jumped into the portal and they was talking about fighting Isshiki and how they had to stall for time or whatnot, didn't they say that it was like 48 hours or some crazy shit? And all of the madness and all of the chaos of this battle, Naruto's Baryon mode, I don't know if it's because of the way he was hitting him, I don't know if it was because of Kurama's chakra with each blow, what the heck happened, but essentially it drained Isshiki's life force to, at one given point, he's talking about he has less than 5 minutes, and even while he's doing that countdown to Kawaki later on in the episode, you could tell that he's really run out of time. So Naruto's Baryon mode, you just think about it for a second. If he was fighting the average person, if this is a life force draining type of capability, he could kill pretty much anybody. If like Sasuke was evil right now and he just punched him a couple different times, it would be a wrap, because that's basically all that he did, was just he kept punching the shit out of Isshiki, and all of a sudden Isshiki went from 48 hours to 5 minutes. You could argue that kind of felt a little bit convenient, mate, but nevertheless, it's crazy that this is an overpowered technique, but at the same time, again, you could see the cost, because by the end of the episode, for crying out loud, Naruto's already on his back and just all messed up and stuff like that. But also you could just see that Naruto really is feeling the effects. It's not just a walk in the park when it comes to this Baryon mode, and I love how it even kind of felt like reminiscent of early Naruto, or Naruto Part 1, when it comes to the design and when it comes to just that feeling you have when he would let Kurama take over, because in Shippuden they kind of almost rebranded it into like a Super Saiyan, the aura was yellow and stuff like that. I love how they brought it back to the basics of it kind of having that red coating. I wish they would have had like his jacket and flames on like the collar, because that would have been very reminiscent of Part 1, but just in general, I absolutely loved it. They did the Baryon mode very much so justice. It looked great when he's throwing blows with Isshiki, when he's kicking tail. I loved it, and it's so crazy because we didn't think that Naruto would be able to pull out anything, and it's thanks to Kurama's idea for whatever this technique may be, because yeah, I mean, we heard last episode that he was talking about that it's a major cost. Naruto will lose his life for using this technique, so it was an emotional roller coaster just seeing him throwing hands and knowing what's to come after this battle. But then the second half of the episode, because the first half of the episode, again, like you could argue 10 out of 10 the way they did it. I ain't gonna lie, it is kind of sad on another regard of Sasuke's on his back the entire freaking time, just rooting for Naruto from afar, like, yeah, you do it. I think he had like a little bit of involvement, like he tried a couple different times to jump, and like he saved Kawaki for a second there or whatever, but Sasuke was useless in majority of this fight against Isshiki. Like, granted, you could argue, well, Naruto came up with this cheat code of Baryon mode thanks to the fox and shit, but like Sasuke really wasn't all that useful in this episode. Like, he just was a cheerleader from the floor on the side, like him and Boruto, goddamn. But I guess in another regard, it just showed the epicness of Naruto, of like when he pulled out all the stops, he was able to, muster enough strength to handle it by himself. He didn't need that double team of Naruto and Sasuke, because again, this Baryon mode was freakishly strong. And I want to ask the question right here before we even move forward. Does Naruto's Baryon mode look like the best transformation he's had in the entire series? And I'm talking about like compared to, the six pass form with all the truth orbs around him and things like that. Like, is this better than those forms? I loved those forms at the time because it felt like it was reminiscent of Dragon Ball Z, the Super Saiyan transformation, but then doing its own thing, having the sage around it and stuff like that. But I almost feel like this is so true to what early Naruto set out to do, and at the same time it's like animalistic, perfect fusion hybrid of like Naruto and the fox together, which it kind of comes full circle from the very beginning of the story. Like, I feel like this might be his best looking form, and if you're comparing this now to like, again, Dragon Ball, this would kind of be like Naruto's Super Saiyan 4 transformation. And you can say whatever you want about Dragon Ball GT, you cannot tell me that Super Saiyan 4 wasn't a raw design. Like, that design was immaculate, and I feel like that's what Baryon mode brought to the table as well when it comes to, it just looked insanely awesome. But now going into the second half of the episode, because again, if the first half of the episode was Naruto throwing hands, second half of the episode was he ultimately took the L because his body couldn't sustain this Baryon mode for long, and Isshiki took advantage and eventually started just kicking the crap out of him at some given point, jumps on him and is kicking in his chest cavities, and I'm like, oh man, if only we had a little bit more time, and if only Naruto maybe would have been able to use this Baryon mode at a different capacity, maybe we would have been able to get the W, because it's like, it's crazy, because the transformation just debuted last episode, and already Naruto got knocked down, which kind of, again, makes it less hacks, because if it would have just been like, Naruto's here to save the day, you know, it's Boruto Naruto Next Generation, so you do got to look at it from that angle as well. Like, yeah, Naruto got to help, but if it's all Naruto, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, OG Naruto fans would have loved for it to just be the Naruto show, but, you know, it is what it is. And then when it comes to the whole connecting of Kawaki, because I've said since, you know, the manga and, of course, the anime, that Kawaki's introduction was the game changer. Kawaki's introduction is what really made this story feel so differently, and if you've been watching the anime all these months since the debut of Kawaki, from the jump of his introduction and that big amazing battle that he had against Garo that looked freaking gorgeous, which I would probably argue that even looked better than this episode in terms of animation and art, because they just, you could tell they had a lot of prep time for that episode in particular. But Kawaki has been built up to this point where you feel something for him really deeply that you probably wouldn't have felt if you didn't have all of that. Like, again, I said earlier, if you just jumped into this episode without any pre-context to who Kawaki is, what his story is all about, what he's been through, you're not gonna feel it when you're seeing the countdown and, you know, cutting back and forth between the past of when Kawaki was a kid hiding from Isshiki or hiding from Jigen at that point, to now him doing the countdown. If you don't come out in 20 seconds, which also brilliant maneuver of him tracing the chakra between Naruto and Kawaki to drag him through the karma portal to bring him there, because, you know, he was hiding out, which again could be just called convenient. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it, that also felt a little bit convenient, but there was at the very least some reasoning behind it. It wasn't complete BS. It was that there was that chakra connection link between Kawaki's false arm and Naruto, and that's how he was able to do it. Although, how would he have known that that link existed? I mean, it must have just been like he felt a hint of a piece of Kawaki's chakra connected to Naruto there and was able to drag it out. I don't know. But it just felt really emotional to see Kawaki there contemplating, because basically at that point he has to hide because they're trying to time him out. If they could make it last, because then eventually they said he only had about 5 minutes left to live. If Kawaki could just hide out in that time period, boom, Isshiki will drop dead, but again at the cost of Naruto's life, because at that point Isshiki basically takes him hostage and says, yo, I'm gonna count to 20, and if you ain't out by the time I'm done counting, I'm gonna kill this dude. Which, if only Kawaki knew the announcement that was just made regarding that mode, that if basically, you know, Naruto's a walking dead man seemingly, right? But Kawaki contemplating, oh man, first of all, again, they made the art and animation look gorgeous, especially the art of Kawaki and all of those scenes of him thinking back, cutting back and forth between the past and now. They did the works on that part too. I would argue that artistically, not animation wise, because there wasn't much to animate there, but just the art wise, they put it even better looking on the second half, because again, first of all, like, it's easier to just draw beautiful art opposed to animating it as well, and they did a phenomenal job on that side of it as well. Like, the second half of the episode was not just as strong in terms of action, but in terms of emotion, in terms of moving things along, it sufficed very, very well. And, you know, having that connection that we've had built up all of these episodes between Naruto and Kawaki, how essentially, you know, we've had always since the beginning of Boruto Naruto the movie that it was Sasuke and Boruto, you know, that connection, that bond, to see that Naruto had his own bond with another kid, this Kawaki kid, and how Kawaki, even, you know, when we're getting the silhouettes of initially Jigen counting in front of him and then getting that part of Naruto hugging him, that bond is real, that bond is strong, and he couldn't help himself. Like, between the countdown and, you know, I'm sure he has PTSD like hell of everything that happened to him in the past, but then coming to now, he came out because not necessarily he was scared, but because he cares about Naruto, he loves Naruto, and that was a very sad and impactful moment there as well, him coming out to try and save the person that he cares about, the Hokage, the 7th Naruto. Oh, what an episode, fam. What an episode. they slam dunked it. They slam dunked it, and I was scared. I was nervous. Are they gonna be able to do it justice? But dividing it into 2 episodes and 1 was a brilliant maneuver. Combining it, making you feel that Kawaki is still relevant and important to things, because for, you know, the last few episodes, he's kind of just been completely removed from everything. You know, he was just in the base and the foundation, the former foundation housing and shit. Like, he was completely out of here. They brought him back into the fold and made him important again, and they did a great job. I don't want to keep on repeating myself. It was fantastic. One of the best episodes of Boruto yet again. Very curious what you guys thought. How did you feel about all of this? For starters, how did you feel about Naruto in his Baryon mode? Is that the rawest design you've seen thus far for Naruto's character? How do you feel that seemingly he's supposed to die after this technique? How did you feel about Isshiki basically using Naruto as a hostage there, kicking his freaking chest in? How did you feel about the second half of the episode as a whole, going back and forth between Kawaki's traumatic and tragic past with Isshiki and Jigen, and it coming full circle, and how having an abusive foster father essentially with Isshiki leading into him finding peace with Naruto and wanting to protect that peace. Very strong stuff, going back into the core elements of Naruto with bonds and wanting to protect those bonds at all costs, even if, you know, Sasuke's gonna call him an idiot and everybody's looking at him like, what are you doing? You was just supposed to hide. If it meant a life without Naruto, Kawaki doesn't want to live it, and that's powerful. And by the way, that line was said in the preview. Check out the preview, because yeah, this is some of the best stuff in all of Boruto. And your overall thoughts and expectations for the Boruto Naruto Next Generation anime with episode 218 and beyond. This episode hit different. It hit different on several regards, and it's just wild to see one of probably the final hurrahs for our Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto, from little knuckle-headed ninja to fearless leader that did everything he possibly could and made a miracle happen, from 48 hours to 5 minutes, and the bonds with the new generation. Like, this episode hit different. Brilliant stuff, amazing stuff, closing out 2021 almost with a bang. That's all I have for this one, though. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Hit that bell to get all notifications. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links are in the description below. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life. Bye. Have an awesome day. Peace in. And yo, that Baryon mode though, fam. Naruto Baryon versus Isshiki, the hype, the greatness, Kawaki's tragic decision. Like, episode was so good. Have an awesome one.